Welcome back. We've created an object in our database. It made sense. That's what we wanted to see. Right there. Yeah, that's the object in MLab. Today we're going to have to look at how we created that object. Make it more secure, make it filled with verification. And since we're here, I think we're also going to be tackling the login as well. So we're really just going back in what we already made and making it better, making it more secure. Yeah. Okay. So we are going to start off by creating a utility script, a helper script, something static that we'll be able to call from pretty much anywhere that will contain a couple of things. Those things will be a token generation function. It's going to be an encrypting function for SHA-256. It's going to be regex. So we're going to be checking regex to see if the string we're looking at is an email or if it's a username with discriminator. So let's actually go ahead and do that. This will be shared, I believe. Yep, this will be shared. So let's head over to the shared folder. And in here, since I'm right there, I'm going to clean that up. So we're going to create a message or a net message folder. And I'll just drag everything that's in there in the net message folder. Now, I will also create a new script, C# utility. People call it helper, people call it utility, it's really up to you. Just know that this will be static. So public static class, removing mono behavior, we don't need any of that. We're gonna need a couple of things, but not Unity Engine, that is for sure. So I'm gonna have a look at what I currently have done on the other screen right here. This is things you will find in the description down below. So I'll start this off with this crazy copy paste here. As I mentioned, these are going to be located in the description down below. Just grab them, copy and paste, and they're going to work. The email pattern is going to work. I grabbed that online. I did not create it myself. The username discriminator I've created myself, so there might be a couple of weird things in there. This one you might want to double check if you want to dig a little bit deeper in regex. And character random is basically just the alphabet in lowercase, uppercase, and also the numbers. First one's going to be used for regex, testing if it's an email. Second one's going to be used for regex as well, testing if it's a username and discriminator together. And the third one is just for generating a random token, which is going to be our authentication token. You could go ahead and just add some crazy stuff in there. So, exclamation mark, pipes, that kind of stuff. I decided not to put it in there. I want to keep it readable for me when I'm looking at token. But of course, if you put characters in there, make sure it's fancy a little bit, but not too fancy. So don't go outside of the ASCII character table. Right. So I'm gonna write down all my all the 4 functions we're going to need, and then we're gonna go ahead and fill them up. So I'll start with a static boolean is email, which will take in, of course, a email string. Second up, we have the static boolean is username and discriminator, which will take username, maybe, and discriminator. And then static string generate random. This is going to be to create my token. I called it random, it could be a token as well. GTH, okay. Getting a little bit better with English every single day. And finally, we have the public static string. I call this one SHA-256 from string, which will take in that message, or to encrypt I've called. Okay, let's go ahead and start with regex. So for the regex, let's go ahead and do a if statement in a second. Weirdo, I just bought a dog. Don't tell my girlfriend. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about this. Quite excited for some odd reason. Right. So we were checking if we had an email. This is the email at the top. This is the pattern we'll be using to test against this email. Here is the code that we'll need to understand. Regex. This is part of using system text regular expression. It's up here. And then the code is match. The input is the email we receive, and the pattern is, of course, the email pattern. Now, quickly like this, I just realized that those are const, so maybe I want to put them in all caps. But I'll finish this piece of code first. I also check if the email is not null before I do this, else I will get an error with regex. Okay, so if the email is not null, return this condition, else just return false, because it's not going to be a match if it's null. There we go. Okay, it's a little bit better now. I'm going to go ahead and just change that real quick to something all caps. Username and discriminator pattern. And this is chars, or random chars, can do the job here. Also, something I wasn't doing in the previous code, but I have to do because I just realized it's not going to work. Like, there's going to be a condition in which somebody can cheat the system if I don't do this. I'm also going to include a username pattern by itself. This is a username with discriminator, and this is going to be the username by itself, which is basically the same thing. You just strip the n over here. And since we're on the topic of that, I might actually want to remove the underscore. Yeah, I'm removing the underscore from both. So there's no username that looks something like this, basically. That's just, I don't want to see that in my game. Or in my lobby system, at least. So, okay, we got our pattern right now. Let's copy that here. I will also do the same exact thing for username and discriminator. It works the same. It works the exact same. We just change the input. And let me create an additional function because I've mentioned I just want to check if it's a username by itself. So is username, and we'll change that pattern for username only. Okay, we got 3 regex function at the top here. Now for the generate random, I'm using code that I've got online. Let me grab it on this piece of paper here. Here it is. So it's a link queue function that will go through my random character array over here, well, string, which is a character array, and then it will basically do a random and get them in any order. You'll have to include a couple of things for this to work, including link queue, I believe. Yeah, link queue is going to be in there. Here it is. Character for random. That's like this. GTH. Okay, LENGTH. There we go. And that's it. That's my function right here for generate random. I told you I didn't actually do this function. I grab it online just like I grabbed this encryption function online. What I like about utility script like this and helper script is that I don't actually have to create them so much. Everybody's fighting on Stack Overflow about which one is the best and which one's the more optimal. So I just decided to grab one of these, and here they are. Now, quickly, for this one, we'll have to include cryptography and also system text encoding. You'll see them here at the top. Actually, this one I only use it by itself. I don't like that. Let me make sure we use it at the top. Right. If we have a quick look at this one, you have your string that you send over to the function. It's going to compute the hash of it and then format it in a hexadecimal manner. That sounds cool to me. As long as every time I have a string, I make it go through that one function, the result's going to be the same in the end. So what's really important in this script right here is that you know what's going inside of the function and what's coming out. That's all I can say about this one. Okay, now having those functions handy, we can head back to mongo.cs, in which we're going to be doing more verification. So if you head over to insert hub account, right now we can insert anything we want in the database, not something we want. So let's go ahead and start filtering through that. We're going to start with the if statement, not utility is email. So if it is not an email, and we're matching this with our regex, then we're going to say something like debug.log email plus is not an email. So we'll know exactly why it didn't work in the console. Make sure we also return false, because we don't want to go any further than this. I'll also add a comment. Check if it is an email. No, check if the email is valid. We'll copy that over. We'll do the same exact thing for username. Just change everything for username in this case. And one more time, but this time it's not about the password. The password, It's going to be fine no matter what. People can use as many weird characters they want in there, as long as it fits inside of your database, as long as it's a valid character for your database. Check if the username is valid. That's not true. We're going to be checking if the account already exists. Check if the account already exists. And for this, we'll have to actually find that account here. So find my account. So now to find our account, we have to introduce the fetch section of this code. So we're going to start fetching stuff from our database. And I'll actually show you the query. It's I'm not a big fan of how they put it out there, like how it works exactly, but you'll see it in a second. So find account with email. We're going to use our email to find our account. So account with email. Or sorry, by email. Sounds like proper English here. The email we'll send is, of course, the email. If that account is not equal to null, that will mean there's already an account with that email. So we can say email is already being used. So this will be our message in case something already exists out there. Now for the find account by email, let's go down here in the find section. It's going to be a public model_account, find account by email, string email. How do we go and find something in the Mongo database using the C# driver? Well, let me copy some code over. It is like this. Can you guys read this? Because I sure couldn't when I just got started. Really quick before we go any further, let's make sure we include MongoDB driver builders. This is a query builder for MongoDB. And if we head down here, you're going to see that we create a query. It's looking for a model account. .eq stands for equal, and then it will look for a parameter and our input. In fact, we can reduce this code to this if you want to make a nice one-liner with it. That's it. That's how we find something. The query we built over here has to be tested against a collection. So our collection right here is accounts, and we're only finding one result. If it was like if you would allow yourself to have multiple users with the same email, a find would return you the whole collection. Well, the whole collection that matches this. But with find one, you're 100% that you're not getting a collection. You're not getting an array. You're just getting a single object. In this case, the model account. Now, this does not work, and I believe it's because I mistyped accounts, or it's because I didn't define. Oh, okay. So here it is. Back at the top of my script, I didn't define what type of collection this was. This is a collection type of model accounts. It's not going to change anything down here. The code here was already good. However, I needed to define that so this call would work. So by using this function, anywhere in the code we'll be able to get the account itself and all the information inside of it using its email. So at any time we'll be able to do that now. Okay, so do we have everything we need? We check if the email is valid. We check if the username is valid. We check if the account already exists. What else do we have in here? Let me have a look. We also have to check for the discriminator. So we will allow people to have the same username. However, we won't allow them to have the same username and discriminator on top of that. So this is something like Discord does. Discord does it randomly. Discord does not let you choose your discriminator unless you pay for the subscription. So that's a little bit different. But still, you can't use the same one as somebody else if you have the same username. Which means we are going to roll for this case. Like if you're the first person that has this username, I just want to give them 000 for like OG status. But you could remove that, doesn't matter. It's just for me, right? So if it's the first person that has this username, he is the original of that name. I just think that's a cool little feature in there. But if he's not, then we're going to roll for a unique discriminator. That's what I wrote down here. Let me paste my code, and right here you are free to use your own algorithm. My algorithm for this was a simple random.range on this, and we just kept rolling until we had something that was not found in the database. So I know it sounds a little bit weird. It doesn't really look very good. If you want to change it, go for it. You can even go like with increment, so you know exactly how many people have this username, just like this. I thought that I'd just do a random roll on it. Okay. Now you're going to find that in this piece of code, we are finding an account, just like we were finding an account with our email earlier. This time we're finding an account by username and discriminator. We are going to create a function that does that as well. As I mentioned, the find account function or group of function is something you'll see quite a lot throughout this Mongo code. This one will take in a username and a discriminator. Here it is. Now, how do we go about testing something that has two kind of query in it? Well, let me introduce to you the AND query. So it's basically the same exact query, but at the beginning, instead of doing an EQ for equal, you do an and then you push multiple query in it, just like this. So query that contains two query inside of it, looking for the username that match this, and also looking for the discriminator that match this. And then we do a find one. We only need one result, and if we have at least one result, it will mean that well, this already exists and is not equal to null. If it's not equal to null, we re-roll again until we find no one. If we find no one, that means we found a unique username discriminator combo, which, you know, is going to happen all the time. Basically, it's not something rare. I don't think we're ever going to exceed this roll count ever, unless everybody names themselves the same thing, which is quite rare nowadays. So looking at our insert account, I think we have everything we need. We're looking if it's a good email, finding if there's already an email with this, rolling for unique discriminator, and then we're adding it. So I believe we're doing a good job here. Everything seems to be working. We make sure to return true at the end. And that is it. So we can now try and call insert hub account directly from our code. However, before I go any further, I think I'll actually do the login as well in this episode because we have the time. So since we are in the verification and authentication flow, I wanted to start coding the login as well. And I start laying down this function right here. I want this to return me an account once I log in, and I'll explain to you why I want this. So login account, public void, public model account, login account. This one takes in username or email. It's going to be a feature of our game, so people are going to be able to log in using a username discriminator or their email. It's going to be up to them. String password, int connection ID. This will be useful, you'll see why in a second. And token. Okay, so the reason I want to return information when I log in is that you might want to log in with your email. So say you're on the login screen, you input email@gmail.com and then your password. You don't have information about yourself. That sounds weird, right? You don't have information about your username discriminator. You could have logged in with those and have that information, but in case you're trying to log in with your email, you don't necessarily know yourself until the server tells you. So this is why I want to have a result once I log in. I just give out two information, but I want to have the full information about myself. At least not the full information, but all the information I need for me to view my account. Like the token, I don't need to view it. My code just needs to know it, right? My code needs to know it and do requests on my behalf using that token, but I don't want to show it in the screen. Definitely don't want to show it in the screen, not a token. But I still need information about my username discriminator. That's why I do a return value over here. So that means that I will need to find my account. And something that you're seeing here for the first time, and that you will do quite a lot, is that we're going to log in using username or email, as I've just mentioned. So we're going to have to split our code in two, depending on whether it is a username or if it's email. And I will actually start by declaring some of the values up here that I'll be using throughout this algorithm. We're going to start with my account, which is going to be null at first, and also an iMongo query, and this is actually going to save me a couple of lines of code. So I'll declare a query that I'll use twice, basically. Okay, now in order to find my account, I first have to check if my username is email or if it's a username and discriminator. So I'll use utility once more, and I'll check if it's an email, so username or email. if I logged in using an email, else if I logged in using username DISCRIMINATOR, just like this. Okay, so the behavior is different simply because we're calling two different functions in this case. So if we want to find our email in this case, or sorry, if we want to find our account using email, we can call. Okay, so in this login account function, we can't just go ahead and do like my account equal a find account by email. I wish we could. That would be much easier. That'd be a nice transition. However, this is not what we need, for the sole reason that if we do this and the person just inputs his email, then we're going to give him the account of that email. We're not verifying against the password. We need to check if he has the right password as well. Right now we're just grabbing the account by its email. He can input anybody else and it's going to work for him. So obviously we don't want that. We want to make sure we check the email as well. The password as well. Which is why we're going to create a new query, and here's where the query comes in. So query is going to be equal, and then we'll do the and as we have done for username discriminator. So here it is. So query and equal, so we're finding the email is actually the same email, and then we're also looking for the password. Now remember, the one we're going to receive right here is going to be encrypted, and the one in database is also encrypted. So we're testing it against two encrypted string, which are going to be the same thing in the end. Okay, that's our query. Then we'll do my account equal to accounts find one with that query. Okay, good. Down here, same. Well, it's not the same exact thing. It's actually a little bit different. We're going to need to test against three different strings. So there's going to be additional query in there. So there's going to be and then equal. But on top of that, the username or email we receive at the moment looks like this. So this is username and discriminator, but it's a whole string. They're not split, and we're gonna have to split them to actually test them against username and then discriminator, which means we're gonna have to do split. So string array data is equal to username or email dot split. We're split on the pound sign, and just to make sure we're not going beyond that, let's check if it's not equal to null. So if data at the index 1, which is supposed to be discriminator, if it's not equal to null, then we're going to proceed. And by proceed, I mean we're going to do our triple query, or triple equal query. Oops. So here it is. That's the first one. We're looking for username, and that's going to be data at index 0. We're looking for discriminator. That's going to be data at the index 1. And then we're also looking for the password. We have to match the password for the same reason that we're trying to match the password. For the same reason we're trying to match the password for the email. So in this case, password, and this is a SHA password. That's our really big annoying query. Same line as here. We find our account with this query. Okay. Quite a lot of stuff. We found our account. We made sure that the person's logging in with both the information we need, username or email, and also the password. So password has been verified as well. Okay, so what do we do here? Well, at this point, we check whether or not there is an account. So if my account, it's not equal to null. So if it's not equal to null, we are logged in. We found the account. Let's log in. And else, just didn't find anything. Invalid credentials. In this case, I just realized we don't do anything if it's an else statement. Maybe we can log that somewhere, like somebody tried to connect using this information. If you want to log it, like be super secure and keep a track of that. But you're going to return my account in the end. No matter what happens, if you found it, you're going to return it. But something else happens if you found it. If you found it, we have to say that this account is now online, which means we're going to change the status of it. We're going to give it a token that we're going to generate right there on the fly. And what else? Going to change the connection ID, change the status, also change the last login. Right, so let's go ahead and do that. So, first thing we'll need, my account, active connection is going to be equal to CNN ID. Something we receive in parameter, that's why it's there. Then my account token is going to be equal to token, also something we receive in parameter that will generate just one step before that. And status is going to be equal to 1. Now, this is for my system. As I mentioned earlier, I'm using 0 and 1, but if you want to use this as a flag, then you'd go ahead and do maybe a pipe equal on this and whatever byte you want to switch. And then we have last login. So my account last login is equal to system date time now. So last login was right now. Okay, we've changed the value in our object. They're not saved to database just yet. To save it to the database, we need to use the same query we use to find it. That is why we kept it. So we don't have to rewrite the whole thing. So let's have a look at this one. Accounts, which is our collection, update. We update with the query and the updated account. So this is a iMongo update object. Let me just show you exactly how it's written because it's a bit weird. It's called update like this with the type dot replace my account. Yeah, I just don't know. But this is the line you have to type if you want to update something. There might be easier way to do it. I haven't really fully explored the Mongo C# driver. It's quite a big library. It's quite a big piece of code, I must admit. But here is a implementation that works. Let's save this. We have written a lot of code without testing, but we're about to be there, guys. Don't worry about that. We're about to be there. Okay, we are ready to test this one out. Before we go any further, let's head inside of the initialize of the Mongo and remove our test. Or was it here? No, sorry, it was in the server.cs. We've had this test thing over here where we just insert an account randomly like that. We're going to remove that, of course. We don't want to pollute our MongoDB every time. And we're going to go ahead and check in our data event. So on data, create account and also login account are right here. Those are the functions we've prepared beforehand for when we receive those messages. Now it's actually time to send those messages over to our database and they will tell us whether or not it worked. So I'm going to remove debug.log. I don't think we're going to need it anymore. We still need to create our message. Now in terms of what we will be doing here, let's start with a if statement. So if database create, or is it insert account? So insert account, and then we send in all the information we receive. So that's the create account right here. So ca.username, ca.password, which at this point is already encrypted. If it hits the server, it's encrypted. Like if it leaves the client, it's encrypted. The client will be the one that encrypts it. And then ca.email. So we're going to insert like this, and the insert account returns us a boolean. Therefore, we'll know whether it worked or not. So let's bring this one up here. Let's make sure the success is actually on the 1. If it's successful, I want this to be on the 1. That's the positive byte, so therefore we'll leave that here on the 1. Then we'll do the else statement, which is basically, okay, didn't go well. Let's put that on 0 and say there was an error creating the account. I'll just copy that one over. Or any other message you want. This will be displayed directly on the authentication message. That's our create account. And this time it works. It has the verification we need. Let's remember we have to go and encrypt our password in a second. As far as the login request, this one a little bit more complicated. We have to start by generating ourselves a token. You'll see why in a second. It's because we need it quite early because we're gonna be calling the function that we've created inside of MongoDB. So let's go ahead and do utility, generate random, then the length of your token. I'd like to put 64. It's not that big actually. I'm gonna put like 4 so we can see it. Don't do that. Don't put 4. 4 is not enough for a token. But I'll put 4 so we can look at a database and see it in plain text and keep track of it. But obviously, once you go in production, put that on 256. Put that on a crazy number. The bigger, the better. Okay. Next up, we're gonna have a reference to the account. As I've mentioned before, we'd like to have information about ourselves so we can know what is our username and discriminator. This is account. We'll get it by doing a login, so login account with all the information in the login request. So username or email, LR, what else do we need? Password, the connection ID we receive right here is connection ID in a token we created a second ago. This is why we have to create the token right away. Okay, now if that one works, so if we have something inside of account, so if account is not equal to null, we can go ahead and send our positive message or positive request, because that worked. Speaking of which, whether it worked or not, we still have to send a message to unlock the UI of that person, to unlock the client's UI. We have to tell him if he failed as much as we have to tell him if he succeed. So I'm going to be putting that at the top here, and no matter what, we're going to be sending that message, whether it is positive or not. Now, if it is positive, let's put that all in here and say, hey, success is equal to 1, everything is good, you've been logged in. Been logged in as, and you can maybe even input the username, which we will be getting from account. And what else? Username will be account.username. Discriminator is account.discriminator, of course, and token is random token. If we made it that far, if we have something inside of account, then token has been assigned to this account. Therefore, we get our token here as well. And now we also have the active connection. I forgot about that, but connection ID is equal to CNN ID. We can send him back that information. Not that I think we're going to be using it, but just in case we do. I don't have anything in mind right now for that. Maybe once we have our friend list set up to know whose friend is who, we can use connection ID as a key. Yeah. This is actually not all we should be doing for the login requests. We should also tell all our followers that we're online. However, we don't have that system in there just yet. Therefore, we're going to end this here for this function. I'm also going to create an else just for the OLR success is equal to 0, but it should be on 0 by default because that's the default value of a byte. Okay, we're still sending that message. Everything should be good at this point. As I mentioned, we have to go encrypt our thing really quickly so I don't forget about it. We're going to go ahead and open up the client. So let's find the client. We haven't seen the client in a while. Hello. It's compiling, of course. And we're going to go inside of client.cs. And in here, in our send a login request and also send create account request, we are going to find password, just like this. Plain text password. No. Utility SHA-256 from string, and then we'll put the password in there. And this is what we want to see. We don't want to see a password going through plain text, through the packet as plain text. Same thing down there in the login request. Okay, it's that time of the day where we wrap up things and we're ready to test this out. Quickly, delete your collections. Delete not your collection, but all documents inside of your collection, so we have something clean to test with. And let's go ahead and check this one out. Hopefully, no error, even though it rarely happens that we have no error. Okay, 111, submit. There was an error creating the account. I totally agree. Let's try that again. Still an error. Okay, password 1111. Still an error. 1111. Still an error. Okay, of course that's because this is not matched on the other end. So of course this is not a valid email. Is what I'm trying to say. This would be a valid email. So submit. Account was created. Okay, that's quite cool. That's quite cool. Let's have a look at our mlab. What do we have in here? Username is 1111 0000 for discriminator. Email is good. Look at the password. Our password is actually 11112, but once it goes through the encryption, this is now the password. So that's a lot more secure. Status is equal to 0. Yep, we're not online. Token, null, because we've never been online, therefore we've never been assigned a token. What if we actually go here and try to log in now? Well, let's log in with our email. We have the option to also log in with discriminator right here. We know personally that it's 0000, but the user might not at this point because we have not displayed that to him. So instead, I should be putting only email in here. But yeah, people will have to log in with this because I'm not displaying the discriminator just yet. And if we just try to log in with the wrong password, submit. Oh, think we got a problem. We're not getting any messages back. So 1111 is not an email. Okay, yeah, so we got the feedback from the connection earlier, but I'm not receiving a feedback here, which is quite a problem. We'll have to check that in a second, but first let's check if it worked, assuming we have the right information. So let's try and log in with Discriminator. 11111, submit. You've been logged in as 11111. Okay, cool. So it works, at the exception that if I try to log in with the wrong password, I get stuck in a disabled loop. So what's happening right here is that I am disabling my inputs from the lobby scene. And I'm just going to explain to you the flow. You'll see it. I disable my input right here from the lobby scene. And then the only time where I'm re-enabling those input is when I receive a message back from the server. So it's only when I receive the message back, let's say right there, on login request, that I re-enable my inputs. So actually, it's only if it's a positive or negative message. If it's a negative message, I re-enable my input, but it still has to be a message. Now what's happening in there is that I was using 0 as the success byte before. We're using 1 now, so basically if it was successful, if it was not 1, it means we were unable to log in. And if it was 1, then it means it's a successful login, and at this point we don't want to re-enable the inputs. We don't want him to send a second login request or something of the sort. So just by changing that one number over here, our logic should be back on track. I got a problem right here, I'm not quite sure why. Oh, so we got a out of range exception. Okay, something I haven't done too. I totally forgot about this part. We have to do client-side verification as well, not just server-side verification. Why is that? Well, simply because assuming you want to create your login system and somebody wants to spam your server, he could just spam login requests like that with wrong information. We don't want that. We'd rather have it in such a way that this useless message that should not be sent because we personally know that this information is not an email or discriminator, or that the password is null. We don't want to poke the server every time for stuff that we should be able to know, right? So going back in my client, this should be right here. We have send create account and send login request, which we're also going to put verification on, and it's going to be the same exact thing. Just tag along for a moment, and yeah, this will actually help us quite a lot because we'll be able to give the client some feedback as well as of why it didn't go through. So let's start with utility. So if it's not utility is username, that will basically mean invalid username. On the client side, we haven't even poked the server just yet, which means we're going to do a return here so we don't poke it. We don't want to be doing a send server if we already have some invalid information. We don't need the server to let us know it's invalid. We know that ourselves, which also means that we can go ahead and play around with our lobby scene quite a lot. So let's actually change the authentication message for username is invalid. So now we'll know. Something else that is really important to do right here is to re-enable inputs, because if we don't send that message, we don't receive a response, and if we don't receive a response, we don't re-enable the input. So let's do it down there as well. So that's, of course, if the username is invalid. Copy that over. If the email now is invalid, so if email is not an email, we'll do email is invalid, re-enable input. Same thing. Copy paste that, and then what else do we have? We have the password, of course. Let's just check if it's not. So down here we'll do if password is equal to null, or password is empty. So password is equal to nothing basically, then it's an invalid password. We'll just say password is null or password is empty. And of course we re-enable the inputs. Then only then we can now start creating our message. Where's our message? Oh, it's at the top here. Okay, well, let's put that at the bottom down here in case one of these tests don't go through. We don't create that object. And since we like changing the authentication message quite a lot, let's actually put that down here. If everything went well, let's say sending request triple dot. Boom. Okay, we're gonna have to do the exact same thing down here, so I'll just grab that piece of code we wrote for the login request, put it at the top here, and here's what we'll be doing. So if utility is not a username and discriminator or email, so if this is not a username and discriminator and it's also not an email, so utility is email, username or email, then invalid username or email. And then we'll just say, oops, what's this? Okay, yeah. So right here we'll say email or username discriminator is invalid. We, of course, re-enable the inputs right after. Okay, what else? Same thing for the password, so we'll just keep the password box down here. And I think we're good. So we're making sure to transform our password before we send it. Let's also take the same message we took up here, changing the authentication message as we send the request. So sending login request. We should be good to go. For real this time. Now's the real wrap-up time, I think. Let's open up our database real quick. Again, I'm going to get rid of this. Let's assume it never existed. And we're going to do our test. So booting the server. This time around is going to be a lot better to look at because we're going to have some live feedback from the client itself. So let's go up here. Email is invalid. Okay, so we're going to need the email. Let's go ahead and input email. Password is empty. Okay, that's totally right. Let's put a password. 1111. Yeah, I'll need to remember that. Let me just copy it. Submit. And account was created. Okay, so let's go on this side. Input this. It says password is empty. Okay, let's try to fake our email. That didn't work. Okay, cool. Thus far, so good. What if we input the wrong password? We get no feedback. So we might have to actually add some feedback there. But now let's try with the good password. You have been logged in as whatever the username I just input. Let's have a look at our database now. So we have the active connection of 1. Even though we killed it, we still technically have the active connection of 1. Passwords there. Status is online, as you can see. Our token is LF80. I guess that's a good token. And the last login was just right now. So it worked. However, once we disconnect, we're not resetting that information. So when we disconnect, I want to reset a couple of things. I want to reset the active connection, put that back on 0, status back on 0. And I also want to wipe the token. So somebody that managed to steal your token can't just do operation on your behalf once you're offline. If we don't allow our user to connect, if there's already somebody connected on the account, which will mean that somebody can't just steal your token and then use it when you're offline, because we are going to be resetting that token back to 0 on disconnect. Not something we'll be doing today. I'm quite happy about the progress we've made. We have a much more secure, much more feedback friendly way of connecting. And that's where we'll be ending for today's episode, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Join us on Discord. That's it. That's all I want you to do. You can hit like if you want, but joining us on Discord, much better. Cool. See you later.